Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As we've all still reeling from the events of the past week and feel so much an urge to be connected to our brothers and sisters in Israel and everything going on there, we've decided to launch this program, Take 20 Minutes for Israel from Israel, where we're going to invite guests from Israel who are on the ground there to give us a brief snapshot into what's going on there, what's the mood, their experiences, and perhaps what we need to know from the other side of the globe as we do everything we can to support them to stand connected and committed to standing for Israel, for standing for the Jewish people. And as we work diligently on all levels, whatever we can to show that solidarity across the ocean. It is my honor to welcome Daniella Robinson to our virtual Beit Knesset, a former resident of West Hartford, who her and her husband, Rabbi Robinson, made Aliyah to Efrat. It's great to have you with us, although we're very sorry under the circumstances. Just for everyone who's listening, our goal is to do this Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, each week, inviting different visitors to join us. Tomorrow, we're excited to have the logistics officer for the Duvdevan unit to talk us a little bit about some of the challenges we've been hearing about and some of the work that she's doing. And we encourage you to share this. This doesn't just have to be a West Hartford program, but really can invite people from near and far. As well, if you have any suggestions of speakers to bring on to profile, please feel free to email me at rabbi@youngisraelwh.org. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Daniella to share with us a little bit about what's going on. Daniella, tell us a little about where you are, your family, how you guys are holding up right now.
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. As Rabbi Bender said, my name is Daniella Robinson. I'm Aliyah from West Hartford 4 years ago, and I am so honored to be invited to talk amongst my friends in this venue. Avi and I and our 4 children live in Efrat, which is about 20 minutes south of Jerusalem, just in case you don't know where it is on the map. Thank God we're safe. Put things in perspective, our region so far has only been on the receiving end of 4 sirens going off since last Shabbos, 3 last Shabbos morning, and 1 last Monday afternoon. So, we are grateful for that extent because other regions, not just in the, Gaza Strip area, but other regions have had a lot more sirens go off in the past 10 days than in our region. So we're grateful for that. And just to talk about where we were when everything started, last Shabbos morning, I was eating breakfast with my kids and we heard a few booms go off and we didn't know what that was. If I was in America, I would think it would be garbage trucks collecting on Shabbos morning, but I'm like, that doesn't happen here. And I didn't want to say what I thought it was in front of my kids, that it was the Iron Dome. So I was like, oh, I don't know what that is. And then a little while later, I was walking to a shul with 2 of my girls on a path that faces a very large valley in Efrat and other neighboring towns. And all of a sudden, I heard the other town's sirens go off. And then within a few seconds, our siren went off. And so we ran to the end of the path because there are no homes on this path where we were. We ran to our friend's house and we stayed there for about an hour and a half. And within that time, the siren went off 3 times. And then all was quiet for a bit. And Avi and our son Yehuda were walking home from shul around the same time. We were outside, trying to coerce one of my daughters to calm her, encourage her to come so that we can make it home safely. And not stay at our friend's house all afternoon because one of our other daughters was home by herself. So I was worried about her. So we made it home safe and sound. And we had a very quiet rest of Chag and Shabbos the rest of the day. And there was clearly no celebrations for Simchat Torah that day. All the shuls were just rushing through davening, just everyone get home safe and sound. Unfortunately, we learned about the impact of the war very early on when our neighbor's son, Roe Weiser, was missing as of last Shabbat. And his murder was announced on Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, the family had to wait until Wednesday for the burial. So our block has been very busy all week with visitors coming to pay their respects to the family. And they are getting up from Shiva tomorrow morning. What are we seeing? Here in Efrat, as I said, thank God we're safe. So because we feel that way, our community has had the privilege and opportunity to focus our efforts on giving and helping one another. Our community has been asked to help provide for our soldiers and the families whose husbands were called up, many of whom were called on Shabbos last week and left their homes on Shabbos. And there are so many chesed initiatives that have been going on in our town. We are supporting soldiers who are stationed here because there's been an increase of Army presence in the Gush, as well as providing for soldiers who are from here, but because of the nature of the attack, where stores were closed and people just left with whatever they could, there was a shortage of supplies for soldiers. So not only are we providing soldiers that are stationed here, but also soldiers who are stationed elsewhere are turning to their friends and family in Efrat, and they and their family members here are turning to the community to help provide. Last week, I cannot begin to tell you, there were countless requests on a daily basis to provide gear, some as basic as undergarments and some more complex, as well as food to soldiers. Soldiers are coming to eat and sleep in our community centers on a daily basis. So many of us lent out our mattresses last week and are dropping off food on a daily basis. And we all love to, like Jews love to show love through food, right? So it was a little of a scare last week when our local supermarkets had no more flour because all we know to do is bake. So thank God the supermarkets got restocked, but people love to bake and show love that way, so that there's no shortage of sweets in this town or in the country for that matter.
Could you just give an example of the magnitude? I mean, how
sorry?
much we're talking about? We're talking about a couple dozen cookies, give an example of the magnitude.
We're talking about like 100 soldiers coming up to eat to our community center to sleep. So they may come in rotations and shifts. Like I've been there a few times dropping off food and I see a few soldiers there, like having some respite there. But, twice last week, I got a notification that a family was hosting 100 soldiers for breakfast. So that's a lot of people to have to provide for. And I did like sign up to make some food and we're talking like an array, a spread of food. At first I was like going to sign up, but then I saw like, it was clear that we were also being asked to provide like sandwich bags. Like they were making food. There was enough there for them to have breakfast as well as take on the go. So it's a lot. Now the requests for gear are more streamlined because there are many organizations with access to funds and gear who can fulfill these requests. For example, there are men that live in Efrat whose their daytime job is to run warehouses for Amazon. And they took that skill set and do the same thing now because Efrat is being inundated with requests for so many different needs of gear. They had access to gear, whether it be from the hundreds of duffel bags that made its way here from America last week or whatever it is, but they have a process now where units can fill out a form and they request what gear they need. It could be underwear, it could be deodorant, it could be sleeping bags, which were also a hot commodity last week. So that's kind of what we're seeing now. And there's so many different communities that have come up to help in need. So as I mentioned, provide meals for families, gear for foods and soldiers, and as well as provide announcements to teenagers who want to volunteer. And teenagers have done an amazing job in this country, all over across the spectrum of different areas that have needed help, including stacking shelves in local supermarkets because Arab workers are not allowed in Efrat, as well as our other regional supermarket in the Gush, as well as running day camps for children when the father is in the army to give some respite to the moms. And another area, which is just mind-boggling that people have stepped, is also to provide transportation needs, whether it's be bringing gear to and from soldiers all over the country. Like I'm on one WhatsApp group, people say, okay, I'm leaving Jerusalem now, going this place, let me know if you need anything. Or people are requesting different needs for transport. And I'm on WhatsApp groups in both English and Hebrew, and people are just so generous and want to help one another. We also started to absorb some refugees in the south here in Efrat. I did see a number last week from our municipality that we're ready to absorb up to 2,000 people. Right now, some are staying in a local boys' high school here because the high schools are closed. And we've offered clothing, toys, our laundry machines, and provided Shabbat meals to them as well. Some refugees may start to stay in our homes too. Many Efrat families have signed up to host, could be as short as a week, some for longer. But right now we're waiting for that need to be met. Avi is also set up to become the default head of our shul, since many of the main leaders were called up to the army last week. So he had to carry the brunt as to be the liaison with the Weiser family last week to coordinate Shiva and making announcements, making sure that minyan in the Shiva home is met every morning, so that the family feels supported by the community and not just by visitors coming from outside of Efrat to pay Shiva calls. So to shift gears for a second, like one question could be asked is, what ray of light do I see during this challenging time? And as I alluded to, the amount of chesed and desire to give has been so heartwarming. As I said before, people are willing to get up early and make sure that breakfast for 100 soldiers are provided, not just once, but 2 days in a row. And a friend of mine who was on our block and whose husband was called up last Shabbat morning told me that a volunteer, she needed to figure out how to get her car back. Her husband is stationed all the way up north, and she has 3 little kids, and she works in Yerushalayim. And thank God some neighbors have been helping her by lending her their car, but it obviously would be helpful to have her car back. So there are a group of volunteers that literally they just go around and they pick up cars for families wherever they're stationed. So someone went to pick up her car from her husband's station all the way up north, drove it to Efrat, filled it with gas, and then was like so honored that the neighbor was the Weiser family and he was able to pay a shiva call and refused to take any payment for his services. 0. And she is a very tough cookie. And she said this to me with tears in her eyes, that she feels so blessed that they moved to Efrat 2 years ago to be surrounded by Jews who just want to help in time of need. So that, that energy has really inspired me to want to do so much for our community. So what have I been doing? I've been making food for soldiers and for families with fathers in the army. I've helped organize similar projects in this vein. I purchased gear and food for soldiers. And I have a daughter, one of my daughter's classmates is a father in the army. He's a mifaked, he's the head of the very elite unit. And I befriended the mom, and the onus fell on her to help provide for her husband's unit. And they are in a very sensitive unit, and their jobs is to help ID bodies, and they need very specific gear. Like many units, they were short-staffed and under provided last week, and I was able to provide gear. And just yesterday, there's a massive shortage in this country for different gears is very high. One thing that's very needed are portable chargers, so that when soldiers are in the field, they don't have to worry about charging their phone. And our local appliance store, our cell phone store, had delivery yesterday morning of 60 chargers. And I went into the store. She told me she needed it. I literally went to the store. I was in the mall, and he wouldn't sell me. From a business perspective, he wanted to sell me all 60, but he couldn't because he knew that other people were depending on him for some of his stash. So I'm like, fine, sell me 20. I'll buy 20. I totally get it. I appreciate your sensitivity to other people. And I delivered them earlier in the day. And then I came back to her house to deliver something else. And she told me that her husband was still home. He was about to leave yesterday evening. He came home for a few hours because he knew that he had gear waiting for his unit. That's why he was allowed home. And she overheard her husband on the phone, and she heard screaming on the phone. He was must have been on speakerphone. And she ran to the room and she said, what's going on? And she said, her husband said he told his unit that I got them 20 portable chargers. They started screaming. They were just so appreciative that a friend of her husband was able to do this. And I had tears in my eyes when I heard this, because I'm just a messenger. I'm just Baruch Hashem, I'm just being able to help in this way. And additionally, I just feel that if I don't have family members, immediate family members in the army, which we don't, because we're all in, that I feel like it's my place to help in this way. And also the Duvdevan, that friends and family members of friends come home I have on my desk here a paper. It's a little blurry to see, but I reached out like last Sunday, Monday to friends who I know who have family members. I'm like, what are your family members' names? I just want to dive into them. Like, even if it's once a day, it's on my table, it's on my front of my computer, just to say, like, Hashem, please, like, make sure these guys come home safely, whether they're from Efrat or they grew up in Efrat and their parents live here. I have a friend that has 4 sons in the army. Another friend has 3 sons in the army. A neighbor is 3. Like, these are all friends of ours that, we've befriended over the past few years, and I don't ask on a daily basis. I just try to send them a little emoji, like, I'm thinking of you, sending you a virtual hug. So those are the areas I'm doing. And also, like, my kids, we're all affected in different ways by what's going on. And if it's sensitizing to them to be sensitive to other people and the fate, and just to be part of Klal Yisrael, and that's including like making colored pictures for soldiers. There's a chaplain in our shul who came home for Shabbos. He sent a message Shabbos on Friday morning asking for kids' drawings. Why? Because he was going back to his unit after Shabbos, and they wanted to tape these pictures on the tanks to cover up bullet holes and to provide emotional encouragement to soldiers. So someone sent me this hysterical link of a folder of a gazillion different cartoons with Israeli flags, like Disney characters, other cartoons, all holding Israeli flags. So the second time I printed out a bunch today. My kids pick which ones they want to color, and I print them out, and we will deliver them to different people who are in charge of collecting these pictures and distributing them to different units around the country.
Daniella, as we reach the end of our 20-minute break, and I want to thank everyone who's joining us for this. Tell us, from your perspective, what do we in America, what do you think we need to know? What do you think we need to be doing? What do we need to know? What message we need to help bring forth?
I think that it is really important for Jews around the world to reach out to friends and family in Israel on a constant basis to check in, even if it's just to send a quick WhatsApp sticker or emoji. A human connection goes a long way. We all know that Jews around the world are constantly thinking about us, but I ask to go the extra mile by showing that you're thinking about friends and family by contacting us. And we know that our unity here is so strong, and I feel it in so many different contexts. So I hope that this unity that we feel here can spread to Jewish communities all over the world on a micro level, and not just on a macro level as well.
Thank you so much for taking some time to be with us. We hope, we dive in, that you and your family, all of your neighbors, all of our brave soldiers, that they come home safely, that they do the important work that they need to do. Our mind is obviously on the now almost 200 captives, the hostages, and all those in need of refuah shlema, and the families who are saying Shiva. We feel their pain. We stand behind you. We're going to end the recording right now, but as